Studio 54 actually happened for maybe 3 years. I think it was less. I headed right for it after the first Japanese tour, late 78. The doorman, who was quite famous, Mark Benecke, stood on a fire hydrant and said who could come in and who couldn't. There would be a ginormous line of people waiting. I was Tarzan of the Apes meets Marilyn Monroe, with hair down to my tush, and a Japanese t-shirt with Ichiban #1 printed on the front, in my jeans. I didn't get in the first time. I was so pissed. I said, just like all spiritual injuries, I'll treat it with alcohol from the inside. Same thing happened to my friend Nile Rodgers, the guitar player, producer, and writer for Chic, the Led Zeppelin of dance music. He was pissed too. 8.5 million singles later, within a fiscal year, both of us were comfortably ensconced in the ladies' room, which was the ultimate place to hang because the music was so belligerent and pounding. The cognoscenti, the glitterati, could get into the ladies' room waiting area and hang there. You would tell your favorite tennis stars and other musicians and colleagues in the print industry, okay, I'll meet you in the ladies' room about 2 a.m. That's how you knew you was up and surfing, big time. Well, it became so glutted with people in the waiting area that we began to just sort of ooze into the actual bathroom, and the era of the bathroom came into play. We all know where to hang at a house party. It's either the kitchen or the bathroom. But at a club, this was a first. And I would be there with John McEnroe and Vitas Gerulaitis, and you would run into movie stars and the cool models, those in the know. So, Lauren Hutton would be in there, Baryshnikov, the Playboy Playmate of the Year, Halston, Liza Minnelli. It was the coolest place to ever hang from a branch. And people would say, excuse me, walk 3 steps into a stall and use it for its proper purpose and just rejoin the clan. This spread to all the other clubs, and they began to build their ladies' room bigger to accommodate the guest list. And this was a very sexual time. It was not unusual to see the backs of 3 pairs of women's shoes underneath the door of the stall, and it was totally accepted. It was beyond accepted. It was par for the course. So later, within spitting distance, you had clubs like Area and Xenon. They all had magnificent ladies' rooms. This is how I would conjure my social schedule. Okay, I'll meet you in the ladies' room at Area about 3 o'clock this morning. Cool. Studio 54 summed up an era. The conceptual leap from going to lesbian bars to Studio 54 was a simple one. You had this giant crescent moon that would lower down from the ceiling with a cocaine spoon and little sparkles going up its nose, while everybody was dancing with their arms in the air. This crescent moon had to be a good 12 feet tall, and it would lower hydraulically from the ceiling against the wall with this big spoon that went up and down, like a fulcrum, with this big pile of sparkles which would go up its nose. Gay people were completely integrated into the fabric of this too. Guys dancing with their shirts off, in their jeans, next to royalty. You had Margaret Trudeau dancing next to a bondage freaky deek, who was next to a performance artist, next to a movie star. They were next to a rock star, who was dancing next to a magazine publisher, and they were next to a fashion designer, who was next to a fashion model. It was a very polite company. It was dignified debauchery. I've read Huckleberry Finn 200 times. First time I'd gone on tour with Van Halen, a friend of mine who writes scripts for television sitcoms showed up in my room. I asked him many years later, Jerry, what do you remember from that time period? He says, I remember walking into your room, on the road, big time rock and roll, stadium gigs for the first time ever, and seeing a copy of Huckleberry Finn with a pair of handcuffs sitting on it. What was I doing with the handcuffs? I was doing the Elvis. I was doing everything that I read was okay to do from Hugh Hefner. I was doing everything I'd read in the Carpetbaggers, late at night, under the covers with a flashlight. Don't get me wrong, I've always seen it as a sharing experience. It's like the psychiatrist always said to me, you gotta want to help yourself. My favorite form of humor is co-conspiratorial. I confide in you. If we really make the connection, I don't even have to utter a syllable. All I have to do is kind of raise my eyebrows. Despite all the festivities, there were a lot of times you had to bow out and sleep, try to catch up. The work and discipline ethic that surrounded Van Halen was severe. You had 4 Captain Ahabs. Well, surely, when the boat pulls to port, it's going to be wild, because when we were sailing and working, it was severe. and I followed a few philosophies and codes throughout. Starting with our first top bill shows in '79 and continuing up to now, what I do is the night before the first performance, I'll show up extra late when everybody's gone after rehearsal. Nobody there but a couple of crew and some night watchmen. I get a big bath towel and I get on my hands and knees and I wash every square centimeter of that stage. Sometimes it takes me quite a while, but it reevaluates for me that if I'm willing to do that, if you're willing to get on your hands and knees like a washwoman and scrub every centimeter of that deck, then there's nothing else left to do. There's no further commitment you can make, and I still do it. There's your contrast to those rest and relaxation stories that continue to this day. It's always been a contrast with me. Rothing your room became an expression. When I went to record with Bob Rock, the producer related to me early on in rehearsal that this was a special pride of his to do this project. That it was a completion of a circle for him because he was once in a traveling band that was known for, quote-unquote, Rothing his room, which meant exploding suitcases and your room becomes an art project. The contrast to do that was that I would train every day in my room. And before I do that, I'd get down on my hands and knees with a wet bath towel and I'd scrub every inch of the floor. Then organize the room completely, then train. I did that this morning. This room hasn't had a maid in it for 4 days, but at 7:15 this morning, I was under the bed on my belly, scrubbing the floors. Therein is the balance. That's why the music, or at least my contribution, sounded like it did and does. That's why it looks like it does. It's a big part of me. But it's not the exciting part. It's not something the media is going to grasp onto. But the balance is critical. Freewheeling is easy. Being able to execute it and make it happen is a whole nother story. Or conversely, you're capable physically of doing anything, but it takes you forever to think of what to do. Once you wash the floor a few thousand times, your focus on how to think and get something done develops geometrically, making it happen, taking care of business.